Just a few days ago, the nearby shopping street held a raffle event, and I decided to join in. Back then, whenever you bought something, you did get a ticket for the draw. I managed to collect a few tickets and eagerly reached into the raffle box. I was hoping to win the third prize, that sporty bicycle. As I was thinking that, suddenly, a loud shout rang in my ears. It was unmistakably the voice of my grandfather, who had passed away 2 years ago. Startled, I instinctively clutched my ticket tightly. Pulling it out, I saw it won the 6th prize, a set of Japanese sake. It looked like it came from one of those famous breweries. At that moment, I remembered how my grandfather had been a serious heavy drinker when he was alive, so even after death, it seems he still wanted his drink. I was a bit surprised. Looks like it'd been unwittingly used. Later, I offered half the sake in front of his household altar and kept the rest for myself, like a fee for being used. Thinking about how much Grandpa had loved drinking, how happy he always looked with a glass in hand, I found myself a little nostalgic for him. Back when I first started night shift at a logistics company, things weren't so intense or dangerous, so the work was pretty bearable. Right after I joined, a senior colleague warned me the warehouse was haunted. You had to watch out there. They said it was a man and a woman's ghost, and everyone who'd been there had seen them, sometimes even a whole group at once. Honestly, I never believed in ghosts or spirits, but hearing every the minus top stories, I couldn't help but feel a bit curious, hoping maybe I'd encounter something myself. One night, a shipment arrived at the warehouse. While sorting through the goods, my senior told me to move some items that didn't belong there over to a warehouse. So off I went. At that moment, only 2 lazy colleagues were lingering inside a warehouse. They were slumped in a corner, staring blankly, just wasting time. I greeted them, dropped off the goods, and suddenly felt the urge to pee. So I headed for the restroom inside a warehouse. As I walked down the corridor toward the bathroom, I suddenly recalled what my senior had said when I started. The ghost in a warehouse often appeared near the restrooms. Sometimes, a male ghost would sit in the farthest stall of the men's restroom, and down the hall outside, a female ghost would sometimes emerge from the lower part of the wall, wandering the corridor, but neither of them would ever leave their spots or make noise or do anything aggressive. So people weren't really afraid anymore, just used to it. Even though I didn't believe in ghosts, walking down that pitch-black hallway late at night without warning felt creepy. A slow wave of fear crept up inside me. The corridor before the restroom was completely dark, not a single light. Only the dim glow from inside the restroom spilled out, casting eerie shadows. Still, I was really desperate, so I didn't think much and just quickened my pace, pulling down the stoned latch as I hurried inside. The moment I stepped into the southern part of the restroom, I saw a woman standing deep inside. She wore a kimono, the classic ghostly image. Honestly, I jumped in shock. Seeing a ghost for the first time was way more terrifying than I imagined. Frozen, I stared at her. She looked as if she'd wandered into the wrong place. Then, suddenly, she seemed to notice me and quickly turned her head. When she saw me, she froze for a moment. Then our eyes met. She glanced down at the stoned, or it just pulled open, then shyly looked away to the side. I saw her blush and cover her face, letting out a shy little scream before disappearing quickly through the wall. After working there a while, I was transferred to a warehouse, where those lazy co-workers were just goofing off. During that time, I kept running into that woman. Sometimes when I was heading to the bathroom, I'd catch her emerging from the deep wall of the corridor. When she saw me, she'd let out a shy sound, cover her face, and quietly slip back inside the wall. Other times, while I was peeing, you'd feel an intense, strange gaze on my back. Turning around to look at the restroom door, I'd catch a glimpse of her half-meanness hidden face, peeking at me, and she seemed afraid of being caught. always quickly shrinking back to hide. I remembered the scene you're saying those spirits never left their wandering spots or made sounds was a lie. From how that woman ghost acted when she met me, it was clear she was just a horny troublemaker in a kimono. As for the male ghost, I never saw him once. When I get into the elevator, even if no one else is inside, I always give a light nod before stepping in. That's not random, there's a reason. The story goes like this because of work. I often visited clients' companies. One day, I went to a company I'd been to many times before. That day, I sat through a long, grueling meeting that dragged on late into the evening. Finally, it was over. Leaving the client's office, it was already around 9 at night. I stood in the stairwell waiting for the elevator. The building was completely empty on these floors at night, filled with a chilly silence that hung thick in the air. After a while, the elevator arrived. I stepped inside. The empty space and the relief after a hard day's work washed away the tension from the meeting. But I was so relaxed that I accidentally let out a fart. A few seconds later, the smell started to settle in the elevator's tail and strong. I got a little nervous. What if someone suddenly stepped in? But every time I came here, I never met anyone between the second and third floors. So I relaxed again, thinking I'd just ride it all the way down to the first floor without issue. Then, standing in the center of the elevator, I suddenly heard a sound from my left side. I quickly dodged to the right and glanced over. There was a fellow office worker, just like me, frowning. I thought, oh no, was it empty when I got in? I couldn't believe it and felt even more embarrassed about the smell. I muttered a soft apology in a whisper that sounded almost like the noise it made. Sorry. I looked down at the elevator door's reflection. The man furrowed his brows, trying to turn his face slowly away. But the stench clearly hit him hard, because his expression was one of being thoroughly offended by the smell. Then, briefly, he glanced right at me. I stayed silent, feeling awkward and hoping the elevator would hurry to the first floor. I stole another glance at him. Just as the elevator neared the lobby, the man suddenly vanished. I looked around across the whole empty elevator. There was no sign of anyone else. When the elevator doors slid open on the first floor, I stepped outside and stared for a while at the silver doors. In my mind, I quietly said, even if you're a ghost, I'm sorry for being rude. Then I left the building. Since then, whenever I enter an elevator, even if it seems totally empty, I always give a little nod, just in case previous passengers I can't see are already there. By the way, later I heard from my client that the elevator ghost in their building was pretty famous, but for some reason, it hasn't appeared lately. That was several years ago. At the time, I had moved from Tokyo to a more rural area for work, living in the company dormitory. I stayed there for a few years. One scorching summer, several employees took the weekend to go to the seaside. 2 of them were swept away by the waves. To be exact, on the day they were swept out, I didn't even know they had died yet. I only learned from my boss that they were missing. That day, the dorm buzzed with talk and worry. Those 2 juniors never came back. One of them was Shu-Ji, who was very close to me. I felt deeply concerned. That night, I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night and went to the bathroom. As I walked down the hallway, a junior called out to me, "Senpai, there's something bad in the box on top of my locker. I'm counting on you for it." I had no idea what he meant, so I answered, "Huh? What is?" He repeated the same thing, "Senpai, I'm counting on you later." Half asleep and confused about who he was, not to mention the strange message, I just ignored him and went to the bathroom. After I finished and walked back to my room, lying down, I wondered, who was that? Was I half-minded dreaming? Thinking back, I suddenly realized the junior who spoke to me was probably Shu-Ji, the one who had been swept away by the sea. Not long after, I received the news that both bodies had been found and recovered. Later, the boss visited their families to offer condolences and help with arrangements. Meanwhile, I and another colleague were told to help pack up their belongings in the dorm before the families came for them. So as I sorted through Shu Yu's things, my mind drifted to what he had said in the hallway that night. I climbed up and checked the top of his locker. Sure enough, there was a box. Inside the box were a few yellowed books, and several close intimate photos of Shu Yu with a foreign woman, sharing flirtatious smiles. I remembered Shu Yu. I had a girlfriend since university. He'd heard her say once she hoped to marry him once his work settled down, but I'd seen a photo of his girlfriend. She was Japanese, and completely different from the person in the photos I was holding. Could this be an affair? As I looked through the contents of the box, I thought to myself that she probably wouldn't want me sending these things back to her family home. She must have wanted to take these secrets with her. So I avoided the other colleague who was helping pack up her things, and secretly took the box to my room to hide it. A few days later, I casually threw away the adult magazines as if they were my own, then took the photos to a temple and asked them to dispose of them properly. Still, when I later realized that the Shuji I'd encountered in the hallway was a ghost, I was a little frightened. This happened a while back. Well, I just entered society and didn't have much money, but I wanted to make it in Tokyo. So I called my cousin who lived there, since I could see those kinds of things, and wasn't really afraid of that sort of situation. The moment I arrived in Tokyo, I got straight to the point and told my cousin I wanted to live in a cheap place with problems. My cousin reluctantly found a few options and took me to see them. But because she was scared, she made me go in, look by myself. The first one, the moment I opened the door, I saw an angry old man standing in the entryway to greet me. The second one had a strange face on the kitchen wall. The third one had a faceless old woman in the corner of the room. The last one was a 2- bedroom that was especially cheap, with a young woman sitting with her back to me in the corner of one of the rooms. She seemed like a beauty. I thought to myself, if I really had to live with a ghost, I'd rather pick a beautiful female ghost. So I decided on the last one. My cousin said helplessly, "No one's been able to stay in this place for more than 3 months. Once you move in, you're on your own." Later, on moving day, I observed a bit. That female ghost, let's call her Rumiko, she just kept sitting with her back turned in the corner of that room, and never left it. So if I put some miscellaneous items in that room and didn't use it, it seemed like it wouldn't affect my life too much. I found work smoothly after that, and the apartment was quite stable. I settled down in Tokyo just like that. But then, in the second week after moving in, I had a dream in the middle of the night. I dreamed I was lying in bed in my room with my eyes open, and a woman's voice by my ear was shouting at me to go buy eggs. I turned my head and saw a woman standing by my bed looking at me, her mouth constantly repeating, "Go buy eggs." I woke up startled. It was already light out. Clearly, the woman in the dream was Umiko. That morning when I opened the fridge, I discovered I was out of eggs. A few days later, the same dream again. I dreamed I was in my room watching TV when Umiko walked out of that room and headed to the kitchen. She looked utterly sinister and terrifying. Then she turned her head to look at me and commanded, "Go buy me soy sauce." The next day I checked, and sure enough, I was out of soy sauce. Umiko was like a roommate who reminded me of things. Whenever I was missing something in daily life, or some necessity was running low, she'd appear in my dreams and tell me to go buy it. Though sometimes the way she appeared in my dreams still scared me, I was grateful in my heart. Later, one holiday, I made plans with some co-workers to explore an abandoned building together. It was a derelict hotel. That day I walked at the front of the group. At first nothing happened, the first few floors were empty. But when we reached the third floor, There was a room with its door closed. This was unusual, so I walked toward that room. My friends followed behind me. The instant I opened the door, I saw a woman right in front of me. While I was completely unprepared, she suddenly rushed at me. I was so startled I stumbled backward, lost my balance completely, and fell flat on my face. The woman vanished the moment she touched me. My friends just saw me suddenly fall backward and asked what happened. Since my friends couldn't see those kinds of things, I only told them we'd better leave quickly. So everyone hurried out. Later we drove to the nearest convenience store. I was standing alone outside the shop drinking coffee, waiting for my friends to come out, when I saw a woman standing on the sidewalk across the street staring at me. I immediately realized it was the same woman I'd encountered at the hotel. She started moving toward me. As the woman got closer and closer, and I grew more and more tense, a friend tapped my shoulder and asked what I was looking at. I jumped in fright, and when I turned my head back, there was no one there. I was truly terrified, and I'd been feeling unwell ever since leaving the hotel, so I was distracted. I thought I might have been followed. It looked like I'd need to find an expert to exorcise this spirit. I don't even remember how I got home that day. I only recall that by the time I arrived it was already 2 in the morning. I was so exhausted, and still feeling so unwell, that I didn't even shower, just crawled into bed and fell asleep. That night, I had a strange dream. I was sitting in the living room, reading a book, when suddenly that woman from the restaurant appeared at my doorstep. She slowly moved closer, her face terrifying in a way that froze me with fear. Just then, I stepped out of her room. She grabbed the woman's hair with one hand and punched her in the stomach with the other. There wasn't any sound, but I could see I was saying something sharply to her. The restaurant woman looked like a scolded child, silently shrinking back. Then she quietly walked to the door and disappeared. After the woman vanished, I whipped her head around and glared at me. Angry, she said, "Next time you bring some random woman home,